Are you frustrated because your dog can follow a direction like sit perfectly at home when you ask, but the moment you step outside, it's like you're invisible? If you're anything like us, when teaching your dog to do any new skill, you're going to run into two big problems after your first few training sessions. Problem number one, you'll have taught your dog how to do the thing, like sit, inside your living room, but when you take them anywhere else, they don't listen to you or they've forgotten how to sit entirely. I'm going to show you why that's not the case and what's really going on here. And number two, your dog sits great, but only if you're showing them the goods up front. I'm going to show you what to do next, including our process for how to be intentional about the food that you're using and why getting rid of the treats too early in your training can really put a damper on your training goals. First, if your dog is not sitting reliably inside your home when cued to do so, you need to start there first. We've made a video just for you so that you can teach your dog how to sit so that you can lay the foundation for their training. Give it a watch if you're still in the initial process of teaching your dog to sit. For those of you still struggling to get your dog to sit reliably in the home, I want to show you some of our top strategies to get your dog learning to sit in no time. Because next, we're going to dive into how to teach your dog to sit anywhere, anytime. So here's the deal when you're trying to teach your dog sit for the first time. For hyper dogs and young dogs, sometimes it's impossible to keep your dog still, let alone getting them to engage with you in training. If you've got a dog with lots and lots of energy, let's talk about how to get some focus on you during a training session. Puppies are prediction machines. They are learning all the time. Because of that, they really get curious about what works for them and what doesn't. How can I get food? How can I get attention? How do I accomplish that little puppy goal that I have? Keep that in mind because we'll be using that curiosity to boost their interest in our training games. I always start by teaching young puppies to follow a basic food lure. All I need to do is take a bit of food into my hand and get the dog interested in following it. I move it slowly at first to get their attention. When they walk a few steps, chasing after the food, I'll release it for the dog to snack on. I'll do this over and over again until I can get the dog following me to all kinds of fun places around the room for gradually longer amounts of time and onto more challenging locations. Maybe I'll bring them up onto a pillow or around a chair or maybe over my legs. Then, when they're following the food, I'll just pop it over their head and into a sit. This may take a few repetitions to get their butt down, but at least now you have their focus. Let's shift gears here and really focus in on the puppy side of things. Some of you may be thinking, is there an age that's too young to be working on training? Maybe. The longer answer is that working with your dog and the tasks you are asking them to perform will develop over time. For example, from 8 to 12 weeks, providing your puppy with socialization opportunities is super important, and this goes beyond just meeting people and other dogs. We could create an entire series on good socialization practices, but healing perfectly when cued would be a pretty unreasonable expectation. Their little baby brains just aren't ready for the big stuff yet. Even some of the basic behaviors like sit and down may be a bridge too far for a very young pup. They may struggle to sit when you ask at 8 weeks, but by 12 weeks, they're a rock star sitter. Just know, if you're struggling to get a perfect sit right away, that it's okay to allow your dog's brain to develop for a few weeks and take it easy on formal training until then. Now I want to hear from all of you. Leave a comment down below letting me know what challenges you've faced in teaching some of these basic manners behaviors. Let's get on to teaching our dog to sit anywhere and everywhere. So you've taught your dog how to sit reliably, in your living room, with treats in hand, but everywhere else, it's like their mind has been wiped and they're right back to jumping or pulling on the leash. Does that sound about right? This happens because dogs are incredibly specific learners and are pretty notoriously not great at generalizing information to lots of contexts. If you've taught your dog how to sit in your living room, they know how to sit in your living room, and that's it. But if we want them sitting on walks, around other dogs, or for several seconds or minutes at a time, we still need to teach them about those contexts specifically. We need to generalize the sit behavior so that we can ask for a sit in a variety of locations. We call this process of generalizing a specific behavior proofing. Proofing behaviors gives us the ability to ask for our sit behavior in a bunch of different places and have a good chance of our dog understanding what we are seeking from them. And the proofing process doesn't just work for sit. You can apply this to any behavior: sit, down, touch, really anything, including things that you're not verbally cueing them to do. Step by step, I'm going to show you how to proof a behavior so that you can ask your dog for a sit anywhere you want to go with them. The first thing you're going to want to work on in the proofing process is duration. By having our dog sit for 3 seconds, then 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, you'll be building the duration of the sit from the ground up. And get this, if you've got a dog sitting for some length of time, is that just a stay? To teach this to your dog, you first got to break down this process into teeny tiny pieces. For the entire proofing process, how well you are able to split the training into small pieces for your dog will determine how quickly they're able to learn. So I start by asking for a sit. Since my dog already knows how to do this, it's easy peasy. But as I continue, I'm going to be asking for more and more sitting time from my dog. I like to start with them holding the sit for 1 or 2 seconds and give them their release word. After many successful reps at this stage, I will gradually increase the length of time before releasing them. Watch how I start to increase sitting time before the reward happens.
Sit. Yes. Yes. Okay. You're pretty good at that. You're really good at sitting.
I'd suggest starting by increasing time like this. First, 3 seconds, then 5 seconds, up to 7 seconds, and then 10 seconds. Make sure to do multiple reps at each stage, though. If you always ramp up quickly without building confidence and fluency, your dog will start to struggle pretty fast. While this will likely work well for most dogs, you've got to be attentive to what your dog is giving you. If you get a rep where your dog breaks the sit, you've gone too far, too fast. Take it all the way back to the start of the process and go slower. Break it down even more for your dog. In no time, your dog will be able to sit with you for 30 seconds at a time or more. Next up, we have distance. How far away can your dog be from you and hold their sit when you ask? That's what we're after here. Now for sit, it may not be so important for us to get a sit from our dog when they're across the room, but proofing is intended to make a behavior stronger. So taking the time to train it in novel ways can prove to be helpful down the line. If your dog has a well-proofed sit at a distance and you've incorporated some level of distraction, which we'll talk about next, you might be able to ask for it when they have started to move away from you. Maybe they're going after that bunny they saw in the distance. Asking them to sit in this situation, again, only if you've adequately prepared for it, will help them to put on the brakes. We approach this work much in the same way as duration. We start by asking our dog to sit right at our feet, but as we work with them, we can get a response from them farther and farther away. Try this. Ask the dog to sit at your feet. Keep duration short. Toss some food away. As the dog comes back to you, ask for a sit when they are a foot away from you. Toss some food away. Stair-step up in distance over the course of many successful repetitions in order to build fluency with this behavior. Sometimes, I find it helpful to use a barrier here. If the dog is struggling to connect the dots, I may put up an exercise pen between us so that they can't physically get to my feet and increase distance that way. Once they've put it together, I can remove the barrier and start asking for it more organically. Do you see how we're breaking the training down into teeny tiny pieces? This is what our dogs need from us in order to clearly understand what it is we're asking from them. Now that we've covered distance, let's get to distractions. In step 3, we add distractions. Here's where we really get cooking. The work you do with your dog around distractions is some of the most important work because there are hundreds, if not thousands of ways that we can get creative and slice this up to give our dogs a challenge. This is also why your dog won't sit for you outside of your living room. It's the distractions. To focus on this, I'm going to give you a few ideas that you can break down for your dog to get them sitting in new places in no time. Think about noises. What kinds of noises could create a good distraction for your dog? If you've got a toy with a squeaker in it, start small. Try one squeak at first, or maybe even just seeing the toy is enough of a distraction for your dog. Build this up over time bit by bit to get your dog used to a variety of sounds and movements from the toy. So let's talk a little bit about movement then. Your movement, your dog's movement, or even someone else's movement. Try to take a couple of steps to the left and the right, rewarding your dog after you come back to center. Get your dog moving after a thrown toy and ask them to sit just as they reach it. This might be a big ask for them. Get a friend to move around in the background while your dog stays seated. Bonus points if you can get a friend's dog moving around while your dog remains calm. Think about location. This is the ticket, people. Start the work inside, then try your backyard, and then in the front yard. Sometimes just working in another room in the home or the garage is a good step for some highly distractible dogs. Go for a walk around the neighborhood and try it out there. Go somewhere around people. Go somewhere around dogs at a distance. Go to a patio, but don't go inside. Then go inside at a slow time of day. The distracting part here is everything that's going on around your dog while they are outside of the house. Start small and build your way up over the course of weeks or months. The good news is, when you start working with simple skills with distractions, dogs will be able to tune out the white noise as you work on other new skills much more quickly. Gradual desensitization to distractions is a powerful thing. Step 4. It's time to put it all together. Now here's the real test. Can you put duration, distance, and distractions together? 2 of them, or even all 3 at once? This is graduate level dog training work here, but if you really want to proof behaviors, if you really want to teach your dog how to sit in all kinds of places, this is how you do it. Can your dog sit for 30 seconds at a time while a dog runs by at the park? Can your dog sit at a restaurant patio while the server delivers your food? Can your dog sit while waiting to go into the dog park? Can they contain their excitement? When putting it all together, you've got to go back to basics. Every time that you're in a new environment, start the duration practice over again. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The same goes for the distance and distraction work. When you add in a new element, your dog needs your support. So we go back to kindergarten and build again from the ground up. But don't worry, the process should be much more quick this time if you've been laying the groundwork at home. It's at this point, and only this point, that we can think about phasing out the food. Here's the deal. Most dog guardians are focused on getting rid of food way too early. They do a few reps or a few training sessions on a behavior and then expect their dog to sit forever and always in all situations. But that's just not how it works. Every time we ask our dog to sit, we are competing with everything else that is going on in that dog's brain all the time. Are they hungry, anxious, stressed, excited? Do they need to pee? How about just saying hi to that new person that just walked into the house? We really ask a lot from our dogs when we want them to sit in a new place with new smells and other distractions. It's only fair to expect them to listen to our request when we've built up a long reinforcement history with them in a variety of different contexts. So before you try to wean your dog off of food entirely, ask yourself, have you put in the work to create a strong reinforcement history for your dog? If yes, then let's talk about what it looks like to reduce the food you're using, because it's absolutely possible. Our end goal with teaching any behavior is to have the dog perform the behavior when we ask, regardless of what else is going on. And we want them to do this automatically, not just when food is present. To start to create this reliability without using food, we're going to be playing with how often we are feeding our dog for a specific behavior. We call this a reinforcement schedule. Reinforcement meaning rewards, and schedule meaning how often the reinforcement happens. Up to this point, you've been rewarding after every time you get a sit from your dog. Once a behavior is fluent and well generalized, we could play around with rewarding every other time, every third time. You can then start to do it randomly, or you can provide a bunch of reinforcement one time, but not the other. Let's talk about a progression that I like to use. If I'm moving to a different reinforcement schedule, I'm usually going to start by feeding my dog for a behavior like sit every other time, then every third time, then every so often, and then randomly as a general rule of thumb. By slowly tapering off how much food I'm providing as reinforcement every time that they earn it becomes all the more exciting. This is the same effect produced by slot machines. It's the idea that something might happen this time that is really, really exciting. If you're diligent in using these schedules, you should still be getting the sit without rewarding food every time. So how does this work in practice? We've gotten to this beautiful place with our dogs where most of the behaviors we ask for every day don't rely on food. We get behaviors like sit and down automatically throughout the day when we need them. Every so often, I'm still reinforcing those behaviors with food because I want to keep them maintained. The random nature of the reinforcement keeps our dogs giving us sits and downs for the small chance that they might get something out of it that time. But for the behaviors that are really important, like emergency recalls and some of the behaviors related to our reactivity work, those always earn reinforcement from me. I want my dogs to know every time they come back to me when I ask, they're going to get paid well for it. I want them also to know that other dogs always generate positive outcomes, especially if my dog is nervous or fearful or otherwise uncertain about them. And it's easiest for me to continue to establish that connection with high-value food. So, do the work you want to do here and ditch the rest. Just like there are no perfect people, there are no perfect dogs either. And that includes my own dogs. All of their behaviors are at a different stage of proofing, and that's okay. We put more focus into the behaviors we need just to manage our day, and then there are ones that are kind of half-baked, but that's because we don't use them on a daily basis. If you're looking to teach your dog more basics and foundational skills, you can check out this video on teaching touch and all things nose targeting. If you enjoyed this video, we'd love it if you subscribe to our channel so that we can continue helping you to strengthen and energize the relationship with your dog. Your support means the world to us. Bye for now.